Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are cracking open a really critical financial question, one that affects so many of you listening.
It really does.
What is the true return on investment, the ROI of a college degree? We're going to take the sources you sent us and really compare the landscape of the 1980s to, well, today in 2026.
Right, because that degree used to be seen as a golden ticket.
Exactly, a guarantee. And the question is, has that changed?
I think the data shows it's been, well, violently disrupted. That's the only word for it. The promise isn't as simple anymore.
So before we dive into the weeds, let's just frame this for everyone. What's the one data point that really captures the sheer scale of this change?
Okay, so get this. Since 1998, college prices have gone up by 188%.
Wow.
But here's the other side of it. Over that same time, hourly wages, when you adjust for inflation, they've only increased by about 26%.
Wait. Let me just stop you there. So prices are up 188%, wages up 26%.
That's right.
So tuition has climbed about 8 times faster than wage growth.
8 times. And that financial gap, that strain, is really the result of what we can call two twin failures.
Yeah.
First, you have extreme tuition inflation, which is just the sticker price going through the roof. And second, you have this thing called credential inflation.
Which is, what? The degree itself being worth less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A quiet, gradual erosion of its value in the job market. Both forces are working against the modern student.
All right, let's unpack that cost side first.
Yeah.
Our sources really point to the 1980s as the start of all this.
Yes, that was the most extreme decade for tuition inflation. That's when the price curve really it bent and it started pointing straight up.
It set a wild precedent.
An unbelievable one. I mean, just looking at the raw numbers, tuition prices shot up by 151.2% just during that decade.
Just in the 80s.
Just in the 80s. To give you some more scale, public college tuition today is about 40 times what it was back in 1963.
40 times higher. That's not just inflation. That's a whole structural change.
It is.
And it hasn't stopped, right? We saw 4-year public tuition jump another 60%, even after adjusting for inflation, just between 2000 and 2022.
Right, within the working lives of most people listening. But what's fascinating is that we're finally starting to see that curve flatten out a little bit.
Oh, really? So it's getting better?
Better is a strong word, let's say. Less
Yeah.
bad. Tuition inflation has generally trended downward in the last decade. We even saw net tuition revenue per student decline in 5 of the last 6 years.
So colleges are feeling some pushback from the market.
They are. But costs aren't falling. The projections for the 2026-27 school year still show an average increase of about 2.28%.
So the pressure is still on, even if it's not a vertical line anymore.
Exactly. The financial damage, in a way, has already been done.
Which really brings us to the big question. Why? Why does higher education seem so immune to normal market forces? Our sources lay out 5 key theories.
And these are critical to understanding the problem. The first one is called the Bennett hypothesis. This basically suggests that for every dollar of federal student aid that comes into the system, colleges just raise their rates by a similar amount.
So the aid is just captured by the school? It doesn't actually lower the cost for the student.
Precisely. It creates a perverse incentive loop. The second theory is what's called the golden ticket fallacy.
I think I can guess this one.
It's the belief that a degree guarantees you future earnings, so you don't really question the price tag. You just assume it's worth it, whatever it is.
Which insulates colleges from any real price competition.
Right. And number 3 makes that even worse. It's called the invisible menu.
An invisible menu. You mean the sticker price isn't the real price?
Almost never. The published price is this terrifyingly high number, but then there's a complex system of hidden discounts, grants, and scholarships. The true cost is obscured.
So you can't even comparison shop effectively.
You can't. Which brings us to number 4, oligopolistic competition. It's a fancy term for a simple problem.
Which is?
Most students are tied to a specific geographic area. You're not choosing from thousands of colleges nationwide. You might be choosing between 2 or 3 in your region.
You're a captive consumer.
You are. And that lack of real competition lets those local schools keep their prices high.
And the last one.
Excessive regulation. The argument here is that all the rules and accreditation requirements make it really hard for new, cheaper, more innovative models to even get off the ground and compete.
So you put all 5 of those together.
And you get a market that isn't just expensive, it's structurally broken.
We've got the high sticker price, but the other A huge piece of this puzzle is who is actually paying that price.
Yes, and this is where we see the burden shift from the public onto the individual student. The key metric here is something called the student share.
And that's just the percentage of the cost that students cover through tuition, right?
Exactly. Net tuition as a proportion of total education revenue.
So let's go back to our baseline. What was that share in 1980?
In 1980, the student share was just 20.9%.
Okay, so the state was covering almost 80% of the costs.
That's right. Now, fast forward to 2024. The U.S. average student share has jumped to 39.3%.
Wow. So it has nearly doubled. The cost burden on families has literally doubled in 4 decades.
It's a fundamental change in the social contract of public education.
Why did that happen? Why did states pull back so dramatically?
It was largely a strategic budget choice. State funding for higher ed often acts as what's called a balance wheel during recessions.
A balance wheel. What do you mean?
When state budgets get tight, it's politically easier to cut funding to universities than, say, K-12 schools or healthcare.
And the state can do that because they know the universities can just raise tuition to make up the difference.
Exactly. They just shift the burden onto the student's bill. Now, to be fair, state financial aid has gone up recently.
But not enough to cover that gap.
Not even close. It's up, but it hasn't offset this massive structural shift.
And I saw in the data this pressure is really focused on 4-year schools.
Oh, absolutely. The difference is stark. In 2024, the student share at 4-year public schools was almost half, 49.5%.
So you're paying for half the institution's costs.
Basically, yes. Compare that to a 2-year community college, where the student share is still down around 20.1%.
So all of this means students have no choice. They have to turn to loans.
That's the end result. And it's why the class of 2019 graduated with an average debt of almost $29,000. That's the new starting line for adult life.
Okay, so the cost is soaring, the burden has shifted to the student. This brings us to that second crisis you mentioned, credential inflation.
Right.
If the price is going up so dramatically, is the degree itself holding its value?
And this is the core devaluation problem. Credential inflation or academic inflation means the degree itself just loses its purchasing power in the job market over time.
Why, though?
It's simple supply and demand. You have way too many highly educated people competing for a limited number of jobs that actually require those degrees. Too many certificates chasing too few spots.
Can you give us a real-world example of how this plays out?
The field of physical therapy is a perfect sped-up case study. In the late 1980s, you needed a bachelor's degree to get in.
Okay, standards.
By the 1990s, the expectation shifted. You needed a master's. And today, a doctorate is becoming the norm to even be competitive.
So the job itself didn't get 3 times more complex, but the required degree did.
Exactly. The goalposts just keep moving.
And if the bachelor's is devalued like that, what does it mean for a high school diploma?
Oh, it's catastrophic. One of our sources says a high school diploma in the 21st century often barely qualifies the graduate for menial service work.
It's been completely stripped of the middle-class access it used to provide.
Completely. And you see this credential creep, as it's called, infecting all kinds of jobs now.
Like what?
Take an administrative role, like an executive assistant. A 2014 study found that 65% of job postings for those roles required a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. Only 19% of the people already working in those jobs actually had one.
So let me get this straight. The employer isn't asking for a degree because the job suddenly requires calculus. They're just using it as a filter.
It's a sorting mechanism, a cheap, easy way for HR departments to sift through hundreds of applications. It's not about skill, it's about signaling you can finish something.
But this pushes a huge number of people into underemployment, right?
About 1/3 of all college graduates, they're working jobs that are well below the value of the expensive degree they earned.
And despite workers being more educated than ever, real wage growth for them is slow.
It's the great paradox. We're putting more time and more money into the system, and the entry-level payoff is actually shrinking.
Yeah, you have the numbers for that,
I
right?
do. Wages for fresh college grads, adjusted for inflation, actually declined from about $18 an hour in 2003 to $17 an hour in 2013. The requirement went up, but the starting pay went down.
So we're caught in this trap. Extreme cost on one side and shrinking relative value on the other. It makes the decision for a student today incredibly hard.
It's very complex.
But before we get too negative, we have to acknowledge the one massive, undeniable statistic that keeps this whole engine running.
And that is the lifetime payoff. It's still a high reward choice, even if it has become a high risk one.
So what's the number?
A bachelor's degree holder is projected to earn, on average, $2.8 million more over their lifetime than someone with just a high school diploma.
2.8 million. That's a huge number. And they earn 84% more annually.
That potential is the engine, but you have to temper that figure with the reality of the debt required to get it.
Right. That debt is like an anchor on the first decade or two of your career.
It absolutely is. It eats away at those early returns. Data showed that for 16% of workers, student debt negatively impacted their ability to save, invest, or buy a house.
It turns an investment into a gamble for a lot of people.
It does.
So this is where the ROI equation really demands we look at alternatives. If the four-year path is so costly and diluted, what else is out there?
And alternatives are booming precisely because they solve for cost and time. Look at trade schools and apprenticeships.
Lower upfront costs, shorter programs.
Exactly, 1 or 2 years, and you're immediately in a competitive job. You're talking about electricians, plumbers, welders.
Essential jobs that can't be easily outsourced.
Right, and they can be earning $50, $60, even $80,000 a year, often right after training. Their ROI is high because they start with very little debt.
And what about all the online programs and tech boot camps we hear about?
That's another huge area. You can do a cybersecurity boot camp in a few months for a fraction of a degree's cost and potentially start a job earning upwards of $80,000 a year. They optimize for skill, not for a 4-year institutional experience.
And we shouldn't forget about the associate degree.
No, the associate degree is often the most strategic move. 2 years in a high-demand field like nursing or IT gets you into the workforce earning good money much faster than the 4-year track.
So if you're a listener planning this out for 2026, what's the takeaway? How do you hedge your bets?
You have to be a strategic, debt-averse consumer. That means, seriously considering community college for the first 2 years to get that lower student share. It means hunting for every scholarship. And it means prioritizing degrees in fields with a clear, immediate demand, like STEM.
So it sounds like the whole landscape has just fundamentally shifted since the 1980s.
Yeah.
College costs are soaring 8 times faster than wages, while the degree itself is being watered down by this credential inflation.
That's the core tension. The data is clear, but the answer is complex. A degree does still lead to higher lifetime earnings. That $2.8 million number is real and powerful.
All right.
But the rising debt and the growing need for even higher credentials like a master's or a doctorate just to compete makes the whole path so much riskier than it was 40 years ago.
Which really leaves us with the final question for you, the listener, to wrestle with. Is a college degree still that guaranteed golden ticket? Or is it becoming an increasingly precarious debt trap that only pays off if you play the game absolutely perfectly?
And here's one final thought to leave you with. Consider how the forces driving this credential inflation might keep pushing things even higher. We're talking about employers struggling to measure these vague cognitive skills.
Right.
One of our sources pointed out an extreme example. Some employers are now demanding a master's degree or higher for a security guard position.
A master's for a security guard.
Yes, and when you see that, you realize the demand for credentials has clearly gone beyond logic, and that's a trend we all need to watch.